Good evening, and welcome to CAN-TV and the Cook County Bar Association's program today. Today, we are hosting our legal expert, which will tell us all about personal injury. My name is Attorney Sharon Strickland, and as my guest today, I have Amir. So tell us something about yourself, and do you have anything to say as you start out our show today?
Yes, good evening and thank you for having me. My name is Amir Akbar. I practice in the area of personal injury with Karchmar and Lambert. But before we get into any questioning, I did want to, on behalf of the Cook County Bar Association, offer our sincerest condolences for any of the victims of the shooting that occurred at Mercy Hospital not too long ago. Our hearts and prayers are definitely with you.
Yes. Thank you for that. So we are the Cook County Bar Association, and the Cook County Bar Association is the oldest African American bar association consisting of members of lawyers and from the judiciary. Today, with our guests, we're going to talk about personal injury. If you have questions about personal injury, you can call, and those questions can be answered online. Call 312-738-1060, which you can see at the bottom of your screen. So welcome to our show. We're so pleased to have you here today with us.
Thanks.
And so with regard to the personal injury, I want to delve right into personal injury. Now, I know when people drive along the streets, they see questions about personal injury, and now personal injury lawyers advertise. So basically, what's a personal injury case?
So personal injury is any injury that occurs as a result of someone else's negligence, typically. Somebody fails to exercise the amount of care that they're supposed to exercise in any context. That could be driving their car and they fail to stop or they fail to yield. That could be in a premises setting where someone fails to take care of a spill or something in a premises or repair a road or a sidewalk and someone is injured as a result of a fall. It even extends to nursing home negligence or medical malpractice where someone in a hospital setting fails to give a patient the appropriate level of care that's required.
Well, okay. I know that medical negligence is one of the aspects of a personal injury case, but let's talk about the most common ones. Everybody talks about slip and fall. So what is that? And what does a lawyer do to help a person who has been injured because of a negligence and a slip and fall?
So negligence is the concept of somebody being accountable for being careless and causing somebody else injury. But it's a little bit different how it plays out in the different settings. For example, in an auto accident, when you're injured and someone else is negligent, there are certain steps that you take and that you should take that are a little bit different than what you might do in a slip and fall setting. If any accident ever happens, if you're ever in an auto accident or any accident, you want to document first off. You want to make sure that you're okay as far as treatment. You definitely want to see a physician as quickly as possible. But aside from that, and that's common sense and most people will do that when they're hurt, you want to be sure to document. And with respect to an auto accident, that's obviously calling the police, making a police report, making sure you have everything that happened on record clearly. In a different setting, let's say if you're at a grocery store and you fall because of some hazardous conditions, you want to document what happened by telling somebody, filling out an accident report. Even further, once you're done with the reporting as far as how the accident happened, you get into your medical treatment. You want to be sure to tell your doctors about all of your injuries and your complaints and document everything that happened and how you're feeling. Because later on, if you need to file an action, if you need to file suit, you're gonna be able to use that information to support your claim. And it'll be documented as opposed to you just sitting and testifying about what happened and what you think and what you remember.
So, is there anything particular about what should happen when treatment takes place?
With respect to treatment, I say document, but you have to, again, be careful in the statements that you make. You want to be able to tell your doctor, and you have to be open with your doctor when you're getting care. If your doctor asks you if something hurts or doesn't hurt, you have to tell them that. But you just have to also be considerate of the fact that they're taking down everything that you say in the medical record. And there will be hundreds of pages, even thousands of pages of every single statement that you've made. It could be something unrelated to your treatment, to where you say, I wasn't paying attention and I got in an accident, or I got in an accident and it was minor, or I got in an accident and it was low speed. You may not mean it, you may not say, you may not ascribe too much significance to that, but that's something that's going to be in your records, and later on, you're going to have to deal with it. It may not be a minor accident, it may be a major accident, but if you say the word minor or low impact, whatever the case may be, that could be something that's revisited later on in the course of litigation.
Okay, so at what point do you get an attorney? I mean, I've heard of people falling out of the car, calling the attorney even before the ambulance is called.
I wouldn't recommend that. You should call wait for the ambulance, as obviously your health is more important. Any lawsuit, any claim that happens, that means nothing without you and your health. But if you have medical bills and you get significant treatment and that treatment is not covered by your insurer, I would definitely recommend calling an attorney. And here's why. You can make a claim on your own. You can call the other person's insurance company in an auto accident and say, I was in this accident, I have these medical bills, here's my treatment. But you have to understand that insurance companies a lot of times are trying their best to not pay you. Or if they do want to pay you something that's not fair and full compensation. And by talking and engaging with the insurance company, they can get you to do different things that may hurt your potential claim later on. They can get you to sign to give a statement. They can get you to get on a recording and have a court reporter take down every single thing you're saying, and they'll ask you questions and get you to say things that may be taken out of context. They'll make you an offer that's not fair, and if you don't know that it's not a fair offer, you may be at a loss as to how you can get a better offer. So even if you don't ultimately choose to retain an attorney, you at least want to consult with someone who can tell you, here's what you need to do, or you have a case, or you don't have a case, and here's why. It never hurts to talk to an attorney. And just about any attorney out there that you call and talk to for an injury will tell you that they won't charge you for a consultation. It costs you nothing.
Okay, so you talked about insurance. So what does insurance have to do with personal injury?
Insurance is definitely linked with personal injury because in most cases, 9 out of 10 cases, that's the person you're recovering from. If you're in an accident with somebody else, you could sue them and you could try to go after them individually, but without insurance, that could be very difficult. So insurance is typically who you're going to be interacting with, and they're going to represent the person that you got into an accident with, and they're going to defend that person. And I say defend, not just in litigation as far as having an attorney there and defending them in a lawsuit. They're defending their person, they're insured even before a lawsuit is filed. Immediately, as soon as they get the call that there's an injury, they're doing things and they will try to do as much as they can to minimize the value of your claim and to minimize the possibility that you even bring a claim in the first place. So insurance is who you're going to be conducting the bulk of your interactions with, insurance companies.
Okay, so I'm injured, I've been hospitalized, it wasn't my fault, etc. So, and you mentioned the insurance company, and then you mentioned litigation. So, what are the procedures? Okay, I mean, if there isn't a settlement, and why don't you explain to our audience what a settlement is? At what point is the lawsuit filed? And then, once litigation begins, what happens?
So a settlement is basically, at its essence, it's an agreement. You can reach a resolution outside of court without anybody else being involved. You call the insurance company, let's say if you demand $1,000, and the insurance company says, I'll give you $800. Whatever the case may be, you can always agree with the insurer that you don't want to litigate and that everything can be resolved between you two. That's a settlement. Settlements happen with people who are unrepresented by attorneys. You can settle a case as possible, but the terms of that settlement are likely to be a lot different than what they would be if you had an attorney representing you. Because insurance companies know that if you don't settle, what else can you do other than file a lawsuit? And then you can't do that on your own. It would be very difficult. So settlements that's a part of the litigation process. A lot of people don't understand. A lot of attorneys, or most attorneys, resolve most of the cases through settlement. Most cases don't go all the way to trial. They don't go necessarily through any part of the trial process. Most cases are resolved through phone calls, exchanges of information, records, and things of that nature. And while it happens before a lawsuit, there's still a lot of work that goes into settling a case, at least if you want to get a decent result for your client.
Okay, but sometimes a settlement might occur after a lawsuit has been filed. Isn't that true?
That's a very good point. And what you want in any case really is you do want a settlement. You want to be able to settle and resolve a case. If I can take care of your case and get a fair outcome for you, why do we have to go all the way to trial? Why do we have to go that far and spend the time and money? But a lot of times the only way that you can get to settlement is by doing a good job through litigation, by having the other side see your case and see your presentation of the case and saying, well, he's done a great job. He's done this action, or he's taken that action that prevents us from being able to argue X, Y, or Z. Because he's done his due diligence, that's the reason that we should settle the case. They don't want to just settle it because there's a chance that they could lose or pay you. They want to settle it because there's a high probability that they're going to have to pay you more if they don't. So that's the incentive to get the case settled a lot of times. But it only happens through hard work and litigation, unfortunately.
Okay, well, tell us something about your practice. When you've had success, when you've had failures. I mean, in terms of giving advice to our audience, what has your experience shown that you might like to highlight? Of course, we don't want you to reveal the details or violate any attorney-client privilege.
Sure.
But it's something, tell us about your greatest victory as much as you can you?
Sure. So the most significant case that I've been involved with, that I'm honored to have been involved with, is a case that we litigated in Texas with a woman named Sandra Bland. She went down to Texas for a job interview to have a new start to her life. And unfortunately, she was stopped unjustly. She was in prison and ultimately found hanging in her cell a few days after the initial encounter. And through our efforts through litigation and a lot of hard work and the help of a lot of different people, we were able to get that case resolved through settlement for $1.9 million with the state of Texas, with Waller County actually, and the Department of Corrections. In addition to being able to just settle the case and achieve a monetary recovery for the family, though, what was most gratifying about that case is that we were able to achieve some lasting reforms. We were able to get the Department of Corrections to actually change the way that they actually handled prisoners, that they did intakes, that they interacted with people who they suspected of having mental health issues. So that, I mean, to be able to produce a lasting change, it's good to get compensation money for a client, but to get lasting change that will affect the lives of other people and prevent that situation from happening again, that's the most rewarding experience I've had practicing law.
Okay, so for those of you who have just tuned in, this is the Cook County Bar Association. We're on CAN TV Live, and if you have a question about personal injury, you can call us at 312-738-1060, where our Cook County Bar member, Mika Thompson, is on the phone waiting for your call. Now, what about mediation and arbitration? Are those things, how does that work with regard to a personal injury claim?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I know before you asked about settlement. So settlement a lot of times is the best possibility. It saves everybody time and money. Mediation and arbitration are two methods that attorneys often use to be able to resolve claims without the expense of going to trial. When you go to trial, you have to spend a lot of money on court reporters, witnesses, statements, expert depositions. So through mediation, it happens in a lot of different forms, but in essence, there's one individual or several individuals that hear the case from both sides, and they sort of take turns talking to each side and trying to bring a resolution, trying to get both sides to agree to a resolution. In mediation, a lot of times they're successful. They're able to talk to each party about the particular strengths or weaknesses of their claims and get both of them to be a little bit more reasonable. When you first bring a suit or you first file a claim, it's us versus them. And it's hard to get out of that mindset. Everybody can fall into it. But when you're engaged in mediation, and you have somebody who's neutral, who doesn't favor either side, and they're giving you objective advice about, what the pitfalls are, a lot of times you can get a case resolved and you can save money. You can do it without having to go all the way through litigation into a jury. Arbitration is similar, except arbitration is typically a situation to where a third party, a neutral third party, actually makes a decision. So it's similar to a trial as far as there's somebody deciding, but you don't have to spend the time and money to go through the whole litigation process. You have a neutral person listen to both sides of the case and then make a decision. So one good example of arbitration is what you see on TV a lot of times with Judge Judy or Judge Mathis, where they hear both sides and then they make the decision and that's it. Typically judges don't have that role in the courtroom, but that's a form of arbitration where somebody hears you out and they decide.
I see. Okay, so now, with respect to that Sandra Bland case, wasn't it much more than a personal injury claim? Wasn't it actually what we in the legal area might call a civil rights claim? And how can a civil rights claim become a personal injury claim, or vice versa?
That is an excellent question and a very good distinction you point out. I call it a personal injury claim because it involves somebody being hurt because somebody else wasn't careful. But you are right that technically it's a civil rights claim. And the claim becomes a civil rights claim by virtue of who's responsible. Where the state or some state actor violates your rights that you have, your right to be alive, to be safe, in custody, that's what takes it the civil rights route. And there are different laws that apply and different things that you have to prove. The case proceeds a little bit differently in a civil rights case than just a regular personal injury case. Civil rights cases typically are a lot more difficult because there's a higher burden that you have to prove in order to be successful. You have to prove willful and wanton conduct is what they call it. Basically, you have to show that they were extra uncareful, or that they just really didn't care at all. It's not just that they made a mistake. A simple mistake is not enough in a lot of civil rights cases when you're trying to hold a county, a city, a state responsible. You have a much higher hill to climb.
Well, you opened up the door by talking about the Sandra Bland case. So what happened with the Laquan McDonald case? I mean, there was litigation involving the police officer, but there was a settlement to the family that occurred beforehand. What's the difference?
Right. In that situation, that's a good question too. And we just saw some sort of resolution of that whole situation with the conviction of Officer Van Dyke. What happened in that case is that they settled the case fairly early on. They didn't have extended litigation. There was kind of settlement negotiations, and then the family, Laquan McDonald's family, settled with the city of Chicago as far as the loss of their son and nephew and what he was to everybody in the family. The proceedings afterwards, a lot of that was the actual criminal case against the police officers involved, whether it was against Van Dyke for homicide, or the other officers that were involved who were charged with various crimes like obstruction of justice or making false police reports, things of that nature. So that, I mean, the law and a lot of things in the law aren't very straightforward. In that case, personal injury, civil rights, even criminal elements to it. There were a lot of different areas of law that kind of overlapped. And we're still seeing the fallout. There are a couple of additional officers that I believed are being charged with obstruction of justice. So Van Dyke was convicted, but we still have to see what's going to happen with the rest of the officers that were involved.
Okay, so is it certainly the same or similar thing when we talk about, a lot of people have heard of these medical malpractice and medical negligence, etc. And then maybe even in some of those cases, there may be a criminal element involved if the medical professional did not do what they were supposed to.
I would say that's possible, but it doesn't happen too often. Most times, let's say if there's a doctor that didn't do a procedure correctly, unless there's some intentional misconduct where he's trying to hurt people, usually there won't be any criminal charges. That's usually just strictly, doctor, you were doing what you tried to do, but you messed up, you weren't careful, you didn't do a good enough job. One area that it does happen where there's civil cases and there's some overlap is with nursing home neglect and abuse. Sometimes you'll have a nursing home where the abuse is so widespread where they may charge the operators with various charges for not taking care of patients, or just where the neglect is so extreme that they have to get involved. But most times, medical malpractice just involves just civil compensation. You saying you hurt me and I should be compensated for it.
So how does the lawyer gain by representing someone in a personal injury case?
So the thing about personal injury cases is that most attorneys take these cases on contingency. And what that means is that when you hire a personal injury attorney, he doesn't take any money from you up front. He doesn't demand that you pay him a retainer, a fee at the start of the case. That means that the attorney does not recover anything unless he wins. And it's a good system for a number of reasons. First off, it allows people who may not have the money to retain an attorney the chance to be represented and a chance to recover. You know, that shouldn't be a bar to you being able to get justice because you don't have the money for an attorney. And then two, it gives obviously attorneys an incentive to do a good job, because the better the job I do for my client, the more I'm able to recover, you know, the more I get compensated. So it's a system that works well in motivating attorneys to do the best job that they can and to be efficient. Because if I settle a case and it took me 20 hours to settle it and I could have done the same thing in 15 hours, you know, that wasted time, that's not time that my client is paying for. So personal injury attorneys have a lot of incentives to do a good job and to be efficient at it.
And certainly your firm and its what's the name of that firm and what's your name again?
Amir Akbar with Karchmar and Lambert.
Okay, we're about coming to the closing, to the end of our program, and certainly we appreciated your being here with us on behalf of the Cook County Bar Association. Have any closing remarks you'd like to make for our audience? What do you think they should take from our time together?
Well, I would say this. A lot of times a lot of people don't understand the importance of retaining an attorney, especially in underrepresented and underprivileged neighborhoods. But I don't think that it ever hurts you to reach out and seek the services of an attorney when you think that they may be necessary. To that end, I would encourage everybody, and we just saw the information put up on the screen, to call and reach out to the Cook County Bar Association for all of your legal needs. If you don't know, if you have some doubt as to whether you may need an attorney, the Cook County Bar Association is staffed and supported by a multitude of attorneys, hundreds, in a wide range of various different practice areas, and they can help you out. So call us, call the Cook County Bar Association. We're definitely willing to help, and we're here.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is Attorney Sharon Strickland of the Cook County Bar Association. Thank you, audience, for listening to us today, and look forward to coming to CAN TV next week. Next week we're going to have, the subject will be estate planning. Thank you very much and goodbye.